Welcome, everyone. This is the Finance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. It is 6:30, and I'd like to call the meeting to order with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20. And on March 29, 2023, Governor Healy signed a supplemental 2023 budget bill allowing for remote and hybrid meetings options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I am going to first announce who are members, Finance Committee members that are here tonight. Let me see if anybody else has come in. So we have myself, Karen Rouse, Al Lees, Hugh Morton, Cindy Brown, Zach LeBrew, Duncan Law, and Gary Carrero. I do not see Christopher Thrasher, and I do not see Michelle Orlando. So we have a quorum, so we're going to get started tonight. So welcome, everyone. We are continuing with our fiscal 26 budget meetings with our department heads. And tonight we've got a very busy night, so we'll get started right away. But we have tonight Veteran Services, the library, the assessor, police, and then the town hall, annex, select board, and cemetery. So the plan was to go in that order. So we're going to start off with, unless anybody has an urgent need to come and go that's currently here. But we're planning on starting with Veteran Services with Carol Freitas. So welcome, Carol. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
I didn't know if you were going to show my presentation or not.
I was not. If you wanted to share it, you're welcome to.
Oh, okay.
If you wanted to just talk us through some of the highlights, you're welcome to do that too.
So my budget is pretty standard. The big
Excuse me.
Kelly froze.
I was thinking she was leaning over for something,
Right.
but I think you're right. I think she did freeze.
Well, maybe she'll dial back in.
She was, but she stopped moving.
Right. It's pretty apparent now. There we go.
Okay. Now we have you.
sorry, I joined by my phone. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Shut one microphone off. There you go.
We've been having problems with our network connectivity all day. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. So as I was saying, I decreased the veterans benefits budget by $25,000 to $300,000. As you all probably know, this is a state mandated program. So I'm hesitant to lower it too much, even though we haven't spent that much over the last 4 years or 5 years. But if we do add new people, I would hate for us to not have enough money to cover the benefits. So I just did the $25,000 decrease. And so the veterans benefits line is paid directly to the Chapter 115 recipients for their housing, assistance with housing, heating, medical premium reimbursement, prescriptions, things like that. The MedX line, which is a separate line, and is, I don't have it in my presentation, in my notes, because I thought I was going to show my presentation. It's, I think, $20,000. I'm sorry, let me bring it up.
Carol, do you want me to try to share your presentation while you do that?
If you want.
Okay, I can do that. Hang tight.
Okay.
It's hard for me to chair the meeting and do the presentation at the same time, but let me see.
I can share it. I just
Well, if
opened
you can share, if you have the ability to, that would be better.
let me see.
Then I can't see when people's hands are raised or anything, so.
Okay, let me see. Sorry, it's not giving me, oops, wait a minute. Window, PowerPoint, there we go. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Almost.
We
It's
will.
coming. You got it.
Here it comes.
There you go.
Okay, all right. So the MedX line is $30,000. And I did not request a decrease in that, even though this year I am significantly under that amount. But again, I'm hesitant to reduce that. But that MedX line is used to pay vendors directly. So that could be dental procedures, that could be eyeglasses, that could be hearing aids. The bigger ticket item in that is the burial benefit, which is up to $4,000 per burial for a veteran or a veteran spouse if they do not have the means to cover the funeral themselves. And they don't have to be a Chapter 115 recipient to get that benefit. So that's why I kind of don't want to lower that, because if we need it and I don't have the money, then we have to find the money. And just as a reminder, all of the benefits that I pay out in the veterans benefits and the MedX line are reimbursed 75% from the state. So let me see if I can change. So that's just basically what I just discussed. And then in my purchase of services in general lines, I'm requesting just a total increase of $460 as a net increase. So that is in the meetings and schools, I'm requesting $1,000 increase, but that 600 of that is just moving from travel to meetings and schools because of how the money, when I submit my bills, how it's being allocated. It's coming out of meetings and schools now and not travel. So it's really a net increase of $400 in the meetings and schools line. And that's because hotel costs, we do an annual conference every year for VSOs. So the hotel costs have increased. The cost of the association meetings that I go to, the registration fees has increased. So it's a minimal increase to cover those higher expenses. And then in the dues and subscriptions line, I'm requesting just a $60 increase. And that is because I have a new membership now that is for VA accreditation. Previously, I was not VA accredited. None of the VSOs were aware we needed to do that in order to assist veterans with VA claims. And now we found out that in order to be compliant with federal law, we have to be VA accredited, which I am. And so that membership is $50 a year that I was not paying before. And then one of the associations that I belong to for VSOs increased from 35 to 50. So it's just a $60 increase in my dues and subscriptions line. And so that's really what I'm requesting for an increase, and then the $25,000 decrease. The one thing I did want to mention is my budget shows an increase of just the 3% for my department head salary, but I am negotiating with Tim and hopefully with the select board for an increase. And I did a survey of 12 other VSOs in the southeastern part of the state. I also looked at the Gov HR classification and compensation study and town salaries. And based on all of that, I am one of the lower paid VSOs in the area right now. So this slide that you're seeing now is just some of the results of that survey, where I'm right now getting 60,440. There's an extra zero, I apologize. And I am second to the lowest of those 13 towns that were surveyed. And when you factor in the hours per week that I am scheduled to work, I have the lowest hourly rate of those 13 communities. And I didn't include any cities. I didn't include any districts. I didn't include areas that were closer to Boston because obviously the cost of living is higher there. So I'm just bringing this up. I know that The finance committee cannot approve my salary or advocate for my salary, but I'm bringing it up just so you're aware that I am in negotiations, and the salary line hopefully will be substantially more than the 62,253 that's in the budget that I submitted. So that's pretty much my presentation.
Great, thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
You, in your earlier line, which was the veterans benefits, you decreased by 25,000. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then I think you were saying, and then you hope you'll have enough funds to be able to serve the benefits, right?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. So I was just curious, I just wanted to clarify that and just understand if 75% of the expenses are covered by that would mean somewhere else in our revenues, we would have decreased our revenues if you decreased your expenses. So the net impact to the budget is minor. And I'm just curious why you would elect to decrease your expenses when revenues will decrease. And then if that puts you at risk to not be able to provide the services you need to, what would be the rationale to do that?
So I don't think it's going to put me at risk. Across the state, our caseloads have gone down. When I think I had a high of 47 at one point since I've been in this job, and now I'm down to 30. And that's the trend across the state. Unfortunately, our recipients are older. They're either passing away or they're moving to assisted living or a nursing home. And when they go into those facilities, they're not eligible for this benefit. And I really, even if I add new people, I think it will be offset by losing others. And even at the 300,000 or even at the 325, say for this year, I still have $187,000 left over in my budget and I've paid 7 months out. I've paid out about 135 and I still have only 5 months left with 187,000. So I still think I'll probably have about 40 to 50,000 left over at the end of this fiscal year, which would certainly cover, 4 or 5 more possibly recipients if we do have a substantial increase in caseload.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Hugh, go ahead. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just going to say, I think that the reimbursement is of monies actually expended, so that it wouldn't affect the revenue either way. It's whatever gets paid out. As far as the balance, I think that Carol's given a good explanation of why she thinks it's appropriate to reduce it, because I was going to ask her this question directly, if there is a declining pool of eligible people through the natural causes. So it's reasonable to expect that's why we're in the situation. Unfortunate people are dying, but good from a budgeting standpoint.
Mm-hmm. The average age of the 30 recipients, or it's really 35 people because 5 of them are married, but the average age of those recipients is 82. So here in Westport, so it stands to reason that some of them are going to pass away in the next few years.
Great, thank you, Hugh. I just wanted to clarify too, the funds would need to be appropriated in order to pay out the funds in order to get reimbursed. So I just wanted to make sure we're appropriated enough so that you can pay out everything so we can get reimbursed. So that's all, but good point, Hugh. Thank you for clarifying that. Al, go ahead.
Muted. You're muted.
You're muted.
There was a lot of noise, so I muted everybody. So
there's many people, including my wife, that wish I had a mute button. But so it's clear that the decline is because of the reduction in your population or whatever, the veterans. My question really is, are we keeping up with the increase to those individuals that are left for electricity, housing, whatever they may be asking for, so that they're at least at a level playing field from from past years?
So the amount that they get paid, or the amount of their benefit, is based on a formula. So it increases every year in July. So,
Okay.
next July, the state will increase the allowances, but will also increase starting in July. We'll implement the increases in their Social Security, so it will somewhat offset. So it will keep up with what
Okay.
what they're allowed to get in the benefit. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, another reason why I'm not spending so much money in this budget line is I've signed up almost all of our, or maybe all of our recipients into programs that, for instance, one of them the state reimburses their Medicare Part B. And so the town is no longer reimbursing that. So that's a substantial amount of money, probably $40,000 a year that I'm no longer paying out. Excuse me. In addition to that, they get extra help with their Medicare Part D copays, premiums, and prescription copays. So that's been a big decrease in the benefits that I'm paying out as well, because I'm not paying as much in premiums, and that cap on the copays is huge. For instance, we've had one veteran who was paying over $100 a month in Eliquis, and because he's enrolled in the extra help program now, it's capped at about $11. So that's a big amount of money that I'm not reimbursing him.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Carol? I don't see any. Well, Carol, I think we're out of questions, which is rare, but but thank you for coming tonight, and we appreciate it. And so we'll keep in touch with how your negotiations go, I'm sure. So
Okay.
we'll keep up to date. All right. Thank you for
you.
coming.
Have a good
Appreciate
night.
everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So our next budget presentation is scheduled is the library. Do we have someone? Bonnie Strabel, if I'm hopefully saying your name correct. You are here. So hello.
We do not hear her.
No, we did not. And she's not muted. Unless she stepped away. Bonnie, can you hear us?
She's got video, but not audio.
I don't see her on video.
I see it.
Oh, you see her? Okay.
I'm trying to see her. I don't see her. Is she trying to speak, Gary?
She tried, but there's no audio. We can see her.
Okay.
I can see. I don't know if anybody else can see it.
I can't, but I take your word for it.
Bonnie, we can't see you or hear you.
Can you hear us? Yeah, she can hear us.
Hmm.
That's how.
Okay.
Well, maybe she can dial back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So there's we can't hear you. So there's a call-in number on that if you wanted to try to call in and speak. We'll give you a couple of seconds and then if we can't connect, we'll move on to the next presentation and then you could go third because we don't want to hold up our night too much here.
Check your microphone on your is your microphone on your computer? Like not just on Zoom, but on your computer, actual computer itself. Sometimes that's on mute too. Maybe call back.
Do you have a phone, Bonnie? that you maybe
Maybe call back in, Karen. I don't know. Maybe she just dials the number that's provided.
Right. There's a number on the presentation. You can call in with your number.
Or simply log out and log back in again without going to the phone.
Sometimes that works. All right, give us a call.
She's gonna use her phone. Yep.
Gary, I'm fascinated that you're preferred, that you can see, you have special talents, it appears.
I can see her now too.
I can't see her.
I can't. The irony of the library not being able to.
I was thinking and I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah, it's not a book and it's not the Dewey Decimal System, so I guess it can be tough.
Looks like you just joined us with a phone number.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Ah,
Right.
Google told me there were too many people on the call and they muted me.
Oh, all right. Well, you're on.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay.
So
I
welcome
will-
to the, I think this is the first time we're meeting you. Is that right?
Yeah, I
is,
just started in
great.
July.
Okay. Well, hello, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have your presentation. So everybody got it in advance since you did send it out. So it's up to you to kind of go through and talk about some of the highlights or some of the changes to the budget, or if there's any significant increases or decreases that you would like to highlight for us, that would be helpful. Or if you have a presentation and you want to share it, you're welcome to do that too.
Okay, thank you. I'll just go through quickly what I had sent you already. Basically, it's pretty much the same as last year. There's the 3% increase for the salary and wages that was already negotiated with the union. We have a new employee who came from a different department, so our career incentive and longevity went up because he is also eligible for that. Basically, for the expenses, most of it is the same. The which one is uniforms and the clothing allowance went up. That was also through the union contract. That went up $125 for next year. For heat and electricity stayed the same. Building repair and maintenance, the 3,500 covers kind of our yearly stuff. We have been writing grants to fix all of our larger problems that are cropping up. We got a $72,000 from the Manton Foundation to replace our doors and to make our library more ADA accessible, which is something, it technically is okay, but we wanted to do a little bit better with that. And then we're also working on a grant from Bay Coast State to get our carpeting replaced. Let's see, office supply, postage, things like that have all stayed the same. The professional services line item for the $11,000, that is our sales network membership. And the sales network is all of the public and some of the school libraries in southeastern Massachusetts. We all kind of, band together and share our resources. It allows us to get discounts on things through the sales network. So that's very important to us. So the town paid for this $11,000 so far, and then the actual cost is around $17,000, which we use some of our state aid funding for. And then let's see, and the other one, our books and periodicals line item, which is $0. That is actually something we pay for with our Friends in the Library fundraising and some of our trust fund. In order for us to qualify for state funding and to be certified by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, For FY25, we have to spend $51,000 on materials, databases, digital books, things like that. So that is a big chunk of our donations that we get every year goes to that. So that is basically a quick overview of the budget. And then I'd also sent over a quick infographic of what we've been up to in the past year at the library to give you an idea of what we're doing over there. So that is basically it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, if you want to just read the highlights of what you've been up to in the last year, I think sometimes the general public would appreciate knowing all the things that the library does, and this is a great 2-minute opportunity to to do that. So take a couple of minutes if you would.
Thank you. Okay, so this is basically only the things that are easily trackable for us. We have a lot of people who come into the library who don't necessarily check out a book where we can track those statistics. So the library itself is pretty much always busy with people studying, people coming into work, Zoom meetings, but of the things we can count and share with people, we had over 62,000 people come through the doors of our library last year, which averages over 5,000 visitors per month. We have 4,912 active cardholders, but again, that only counts the people who are actually borrowing items from the library. A lot of our services don't require a card. We don't make people get a card to use the computers or to print something out or anything like that. So we had 624 new people get library cards last year, which is great. And we're working this year, we want to break out 5,000 cardholder number. We had 67,000 actual items checked out. So that's somebody coming in, picking up a book or a DVD and taking it out last year. And for digital items, we had 23,740 borrowed. And the digital items are the ebooks and audiobooks that you can get. We have 2 apps that we subscribe to. Libby, which is through the Sales Library Network, that we all chip into that because it is very cost prohibitive. And then we also offer Hoopla to our patrons, which is a separate one. And those are gaining popularity every year, but we still, it's over, I think, 3 times as many actual books. So we do still have a lot of people coming in. We have a lot of readers in Westport, which is awesome. We had 677 meetings held in the Manton Community Room, which is, we have bridge clubs, mahjong clubs who meet every week. There's a Girl Scout group who meets there. We have book clubs through the library and things like that. So that steadily is going up every year, and we don't charge anything, obviously, for people to come have meetings there. We had 140 library programs outside of that. We have a children's play group on Tuesday mornings. We have story time on Wednesday mornings. We have 3 library book clubs. So we had over 3,100 people attend those. Some of the bigger, we have a big Halloween program. It's a little harder to count. So that's kind of an average of what we think. And we have over 45,000 items in our collection at the library for people to come in and use and borrow. And we added 3,122.
All right, thank you. That's a lot of statistics, so thank you. So I have a quick question for you, or maybe not quick, but the budget that you prepare and present is the expenses that the library is asking for the town's general fund to pay for, right? But the library has more expenses than what's listed on the budget. Is that correct? And so there's other sources of revenue that pay for those expenses. So in this presentation, we don't see your other expenses and we don't see your other sources of revenue, which are probably state grants or donations or the Friends of the Library and that sort, right? So without having numbers in front of us, I'm just curious, the other sources, do you see your other expenses that we don't see here? Because the expenses you've shown us are very, very flat and stable and level service. The other expenses that we're not seeing, are you seeing a rise in those expenses? And are you seeing a similar revenue support that is taking care of those expenses? So, or are state funds diminishing, or are donations going down, or do you see any sense of any sort of exposure to those other expenses that may eventually be requested of the town to cover. So that's sort of my question.
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah. That's kind of just one. It's
It's a goulash.
Okay.
yeah. So just in my nutshell. So just, we don't see the whole operations of the library. And we don't with a lot of budget. So I'm not criticizing your presentation at all, but there's expenses outside. I'm just curious, how comfortable are you feeling that your other expenses are supported and will continue to be supported?
So for the budget that I submitted to the town, that is basically it keeps the building running. It's our electricity, it's our heat, air conditioning in the summer, and things like that. Most of the kind of library specific things, our computer, all of our programming, our book budget, anything like that is all paid for through other funding. Westport is wonderful. We have very great volunteers and we get a lot of donations. And our Friends of the Library group works so hard. They do their yearly book sale, and that pays, the Friends of the Library pays for about 80% of our books and all of our programming that we have when we have special events. We do get state aid also. We have to apply for that every year through the state. So there's a lot of benchmarks we have to hit. We have to be open a certain number of hours per week, a certain number of days. We have to be open 6 days a week and things like that to get our full funding, which we are certified every year, and we just got our notification that we're certified again for the next year. And then we do have, people have left us really generous donations. So as things are going up, books are going up, as everybody knows, basically everything is going up right now. All of the extra things we pay for. So thankfully we have had generous donations, and we do have the Friends of the Library working for us. So right now, the town kind of keeps the basics running, and we are able to, supplement that with other funding.
Great. Thank you. That's terrific. Thank you for answering it at that level. So thank you. I know I asked a lot of questions in there, but you answered exactly what I was hoping that you would express. So thank you. Al, you have your hand up. So go ahead, Al.
Thank you. I want to get out of the finance committee just for a couple of seconds and look at as I see it, the importance of the library for the social and cultural fabric of the community. We have had a public a library system in this country since Benjamin Franklin. And it has been a gathering place. It has been a place where people meet, where people gather, where people talk about other ideas and whatnot outside of the finances. And I know that there has been, pardon me, I don't know whether it continues to be a discussion of whether a public library in this digital age is necessary or relevant. I want to argue right now that it is probably more relevant to have a public space than ever before. So, the numbers, whether it's an increase of $500 on electric or whatever, I don't really care about that at this point in time. What I care about is the public fabric and cultural fabric of this community and a gathering place. The Westport Historical Society, for example, has utilized the Manton room many, many times, had well over 100 people, sometimes overflowing. And it's so relevant to this community, in my opinion, that we just cannot ignore it. Yes, we have to be fiscally responsible, but we also have to understand what this library, what this department, if you will, brings to our community overall. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I will yield.
Thank you, Al. Hugh, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought in the past, maybe I misremembered.
There's some echo going on in here, so I'm not sure. 1 second. If everybody who's not speaking, if you could mute, if you could, because there's some Okay, try again, Hugh, I'm sorry.
That's right. I just say, I thought in the past at some point we'd had a composite showing the let's say off the books compensation, revenues and expenses. I don't want to ask our lady to do extra work, but I think it's probably already there in the sense of those areas. It would be helpful to know, Schedule A is the town contribution, expenses, etc. But Schedule B is trust funds, or Schedule C is donated, and then you have a bottom line of total revenue expense. I assume it's all there. It'd be helpful to see the whole operation, but I don't want to ask for a lot of extra work to be done. That's the second issue. If it's easy enough, I would hope for next year we could do it that way.
Thank you, Hugh.
Yes,
You
I do
definitely had a
have-
little feedback there, so that was a little tough to catch everything you said, but were you asking for the I'm getting feedback now too.
It's the dial-in number, the 1401.
Right, she still has her microphone on her computer. So I think we're getting it double.
All right, let's mute the computer. Okay,
Is that better?
now we can't hear Bonnie anymore. All right, we seem to be having some feedback here.
Okay.
Oh, we can
Can
hear
you
you,
hear me?
Bonnie.
Seems to have
Okay, I
stopped.
have to leave the microphone on the computer for some reason too.
Okay, we're definitely getting some feedback, but Hugh, I think what you were asking for, if the library has the presentation of the whole picture of the library, that would be helpful to see if it's available. If not, maybe something next year. I think that's what you
Yeah,
said.
I'm thinking more of next year. This is fine for these purposes, but I'm assuming that those figures exist in the schedule because they know what came in, they know what they spent. I don't think it's needing to chase the figures. And if my assumption is right, then it simply could be separate schedules attached, which shows those areas of revenue and expense. If I'm not right, if it's still a new job, then let's not put her to having to do that.
Great.
That information is required for our state aid application. So I do have those figures that I could send to everyone if you like.
That'd be terrific. Thank you. Appreciate that. Cindy, go ahead. You've got your hand up.
Well, my question was along the very same lines, is that I was curious specifically what the state aid number is for this past year, how much we received, so that if we ever became decertified, what kind of dollars are we talking about losing from the state? So, Bonnie, perhaps if you could put together a list of just some high-level revenue numbers and send it along to us. Karen can put that in your folder and we could take a look at it.
I can tell you that we just got our state aid announcement last month, so it was $37,000 that we received. Losing our certification is something I wouldn't even want to contemplate. If we do not get enough to get the state, we have to have certain benchmarks, so a certain amount of money from the town budget. And if we don't, we are not certified, then we lose, we are not allowed to be part of the sales network. And that allows us to share resources with every library in southeastern Massachusetts, about 50 libraries at this point. And we would lose out on so much if we do not have access to them. So it's not just losing the state aid money, it's losing access to so many things that, as just one library, we wouldn't be able to provide.
Okay, good
So
to
it's
know.
about 39,000 for state aid, but I'm happy to give you the extra numbers. I can
That's
put that
fine.
together.
Thank you.
Great, terrific. Any other questions for Bonnie? I don't think we do for now. So Bonnie, it was great to meet you and thank you for everything you do. And if you follow up and send us some more information, we'll make sure that our members have that. So
Okay, thank you very much, and I
All right,
apologize
thanks.
for the microphone issues.
that's okay. It happens. All right. Thank you so much.
Good night.
All right. Good night. Thank you. All right. We are right on schedule here. Just I want to make a note. Christopher Thrasher has joined the meeting. He came in at 7:07 for the minutes, and to let everyone know, Christopher is here. Hi, Christopher. I think he's still here. Yes,
I
he
am
is.
indeed. Yes, my apologies. I am driving at this moment. Got stuck at the work event a little late, so but I'm certainly here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nice to see you. All right, so the next budget we have tonight is the assessor.
Karen, I
And
just want to make a note.
Sure.
You may have seen in your screen that there's a couple of notations that went back and forth. As Carol had mentioned earlier, the town hall has had connection problems all day. So I know Theo had jumped in and out. It could have been because of that. She's with us now, but the police chief also had to drop off because he was having connection issues. And I guess Keith Novo is going to reset the system. So if for whatever reason we drop someone, there's some tech issues going on in the background for any of our presenters that are using town hall or town lines, that they're not at home, but they're using the town computer. So that could be contributing to some of our video and audio problems.
all right, thank you. Thank you for monitoring the chat because I never notice it. So thank you.
I know you've got your hands full with other things. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So Theo, is
Yes.
Theo back?
Yes, hello. Hi, I'm
Hi,
here.
Theo. How are you?
Good, how are you? We've been having problems. I do have my cell phone, just in case
Okay.
this goes off again, because it's been going off and on every day, all day.
Okay.
So, anyway, I'll just go over my budget.
Absolutely. Just go right over your budget. Give us the highlights or absolutely.
Okay, the wages and salaries, it's pretty much the 3% overall, with the exception of the longevity that went up about 9% for the longevity from $1,100 to $1,200. The expenses, we saw a little bit of decrease overall, simply because, I mean, let me start at the top. Like the postage, we had a little increase because postage has had an increase on stamps. Office supplies about 5% up. The software, computer software, the reason for the decline, the difference of the 27% less than last year, is that we have been looking into a new software. Originally, we had budgeted to completely convert to a whole new camera system for the real estate. However, last summer, this past 24, we were notified by our current camera system, which is PK software, that they have done an upgrade. They spent $1.7 million on upgrading the current system that we have. It's going to be a cloud-based. They did some enhancements. I took a ride to Donna Cape, where they are based, and I actually looked at the new system for about half a day. Very impressive. I suggested to the board that we should just upgrade to the new system using the current PK instead of doing a complete conversion. So we had budgeted enough money there to run a dual system. So therefore, because we're just gonna update to the current camera system upgrade, we don't need the fee, the annual fee. That would have be recommended if we were doing a complete conversion, because you need to run dual systems when you're doing that until you have a final conversion. So that's where you see the 38,000 versus the 29,000 for this year for fiscal 26. So that was the large decrease. The meetings in schools, I mean, all the staff have been, they've been attending school, so I increased that by $200, which is about 20% increase. Our overall budget actually had a decrease of about 2/3 of 1%. That's wraps up my whole budget. If anybody has any questions.
It sure does wrap up your whole budget. Thank you. Um, Hugh has a question, has his hand
I
up.
just think awfully nice to see a decrease.
Thanks.
Gary, go ahead.
So, Theo, what have we been budgeting for, well, I guess, what have we been realizing for new growth?
New growth, like what have we been budgeting for growth?
Yeah, new growth for like the last couple fiscal years.
I
Do you
think
have that
about
information?
400, I think it was 400,000.
Okay, so that's the same thing we're using for 25?
I believe we budgeted 400,000 for the meeting, for the town meeting, yes,
Okay.
for the budget.
So that, I mean, that's maybe this is maybe a question for Jim, but if that's the same number we're using for 26? Yeah,
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that we can certainly talk to Jim when we do a general budget discussion, which we do have coming up. So we can definitely
Yeah.
get more information on that. I don't want to say off the top of my head, but yeah, so we can do that. Any other questions for Theo? Theo, you might have one of the easiest budgets that we've had so far.
Glad.
I don't have any questions. It doesn't look like anyone else does. So we thank you for coming tonight and thank you for all you do at Town Hall and everything you do. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, good night.
All right, good night. Thank you. Let's see, our next presentation is the police chief, but I think we're still don't have him back on.
That was 7:08 when Jim sent that message.
Yeah.
So it's
Jim, are
only
you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, maybe we can skip ahead and just do quickly the department budgets that you're here for tonight, which would be Town Hall and the Annex, Select Board and Cemetery. Do you want to give us a quick overview on that while we wait for the chief?
Sure. I don't know if I can share my screen, but I can. So we're here with three budgets tonight: the Select Board budget, the Town Hall Annex budget, which is the maintenance budget, and the cemetery budget. For all three of those budgets, the only increases are in the salaries, and those are the negotiated 3% increases. There's no new positions. Currently, I think almost all the positions are full or occupied right now, so we're not anticipating any vacancies over the next year or so. Our expense accounts for those three budgets are all level funded, so there's no increase in either in any of those budgets. We did, I think, adjust a couple of line items slightly, but there's no increase in the expense accounts. You know, we can go through each one if you want, but they're pretty basic. For each budget, we have the salaries, which are all negotiated or contractual, and then you know, for each budget, we have the mainly, you know, electricity, heat. Selectmen have professional services account number 5311, which we've used for a variety of things. We used a portion of it last year for the wage study. We've used it for in the past for hiring consultants for different hiring positions. And the rest of the budget is fairly basic. Office supplies, postage, meetings, school subscriptions. And that's pretty similar to the Town Hall. The Town Hall, you notice the annex. We have one maintenance staff person, and that's salary and negotiated raises. In the expense account, we kept level funded again this year. We had bumped it up last year a bit to cover some of the heating and electrical costs. We're noticing a little bit more in the maintenance costs these past couple of years. But other than that, it's been pretty standard. Maintenance includes a lot of different things in those buildings. We put some AC in there last year in the annex. The elevator has some expenses related to it. Yeah, just general maintenance, lawnmowers, heating, plumbing. We've had some plumbing issues in both the annex and at the Town Hall. I see Gary has his hand up. You got a question, Gary?
Thank you. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just one quick question, Jim. On the full-time clerk line item, is that how many FTEs is that? Is that one? Is that how many people is that?
So for the select board's budget, that's two full-time positions.
Okay.
That'd be Paula and Denise.
Okay. Thanks.
And then the cemetery department, we currently have a full staff. We haven't had a full staff in a long time. So we're not expecting any additional revenue or any turnbacks this year from this budget. The expense accounts, pretty basic, the heating, electric, equipment repair. They probably have 5 different lawnmowers, a couple of tractors. They have 3 different trucks. So vehicle and equipment repair, we've noticed, has been going up over the last couple of years. Gasoline and oil. Last year we bumped that up to 8,000, and we're maintaining that at 8,000 again this year. And then we just have some miscellaneous expenses. Hoping we can keep the building expenses down this year. Last year, with the help of Diamond, we redid the garage completely. We put in a septic system, a new bathroom, break room. We upgraded the electrical. We did all the siding on the outside. The building was pretty much a disgrace before that. It looks presentable now, for people visiting the cemetery and people going to the office. So yeah, those are those 3 budgets. They're pretty basic. I wish there was something exciting about them, but there really isn't. So.
Thank you, Jim. Christopher, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hartnett. I just had 2 quick questions regarding staffing. I'm curious, are there any, or you mentioned that there are currently positions that are budgeted but currently vacant. I was just wondering if you had any idea, numbers-wise, how many positions, and out of those positions, are there any positions that have remained unfilled for more than a fiscal year at this time?
So with these 3 budgets, no, and maybe I said that wrong. These 3 budgets, all the positions are currently filled. We haven't had that in a while. Over the cemetery, we've had some illnesses. We've had some people that have left mid-year. So we really didn't have a full staff there up until this past year. So it's probably been almost a year since we've had the full staff in the cemetery. The maintenance, the 1 person in the town hall annex budget, we were without a maintenance person for about 3 months last year, but we have a great employee right now. Andy does an excellent job. Hopefully he stays for a long time. And the selectmen budget, those positions are full. There's only 3, Paula's position, Denise's position, and mine. So currently these are all full.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugh, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
You're on mute, Hugh.
You're muted, Hugh.
Thank you. The perpetual care fund, I know that the statutory control as to what the investments can be, and I think it was, so maybe this has changed, and that's one of my questions, only for bank accounts, which we know for the past number of years produced nothing. But that's changed a bit. And so I wonder how that has played out in terms of investment return on those funds.
I defer to Nicole or to Sue on that, but I do know we've tapped into the perpetual care, the interest that we get off the, I don't know what you call it, the stationary account. We have the 2 accounts. We have one that's the principal, and we kind of use the interest account for cemetery expenses. We bought a tractor last year. We used some of it for some of the repairs to the building. This year, we're actually looking at a new truck for the cemetery, as well as putting maybe $200,000 into the next 2 sections that we're going to have to excavate and clear out. Hopefully this next construction season.
I was curious what side of revenue was running these days, because I looked it up a few years ago, and it's a statutory requirement at that point for bank accounts, nothing more exotic, etc. And during that period, the bank accounts were paying 0, almost literally. It's changed a bit. So I'm just curious whether there's a decent return now, and maybe the law changed to permit something a little more fancier than just plain bank accounts. But I'm not sure that's the case. I thought you might know.
Yeah, I can answer that. So under Mass General Law, it used to be called the legal list. So that's changed a little
Yeah.
bit to allow for prudent investment, prudent person investment, which the treasurers of Massachusetts are allowed to do. We're seeing rates of return around 4%, typical CD rates. So that has changed from the 0% market that we were in to 4%. So I would assume that we've earned a little bit more interest than we did 2-3 years ago.
Thank you. And that helps a lot, I think. I understand using that for things like a tractor or whatever. But it's nice to have a little bit more revenue coming in on top. Thank you, Gary.
We've seen that in the local receipts, the interest in our local receipts. They've gone from, geez, we had a few years when it was under 50,000. I think we're up over 500,000 this past year.
Yeah.
And also the good news too is all that opera money. Now the federal government has come in and said we can actually keep the interest on all that money, which is unheard of. Nobody ever thought communities were going to allow to do that. So we thought we would have to turn back all that opera money interest, but the federal government has come in and said we can keep it. So one-time revenue, but at least it's ours.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Anything else? If not, Al has his hand raised. Go ahead, Al.
Pardon me. It's just very basic, and it's not department specific. It is across the board. I think that when it comes to, pardon me, the basic expenses, I think we're shortchanging ourselves to get a balanced budget. Nothing against any department head, Jim, or anybody else, but I think it's not quite. Pardon me, jeepers. Too dry in my house, apparently. I don't think we can expect to have the same expenses, whether it's heat, electricity, or office supplies, last year versus this year. And we're not talking huge dollars, but I think we need to be realistic in the fact that it is going to increase. Pardon me again. So I just want to bring that up. I don't think flat budgeting from last year or this year is realistic. Pardon me.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate that comment. Go ahead, Cindy, you've got your hand up.
Unrelated to the budgets that you just presented, but and I know we can't discuss it tonight because it's not on the list, but I just wanted to give Jim a heads up or ask him a question. I believe the building inspector was scheduled to come next week, Jim. Have you looked at his budget?
Yeah, I have. I've been
Okay, so
involved.
can you present Ralph's budget next week or some
Sure.
other week? Do you know when
Sure.
he's going to be returning?
Yeah, he may not be here for a few weeks. He may not be back for a while. So yeah, I can do his budget.
Okay. All right. So we'll set that up. I just wanted to bring it up while I was thinking about it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions on the three budgets that we are discussing tonight? Town Hall Annex, Select Board, Cemetery. I don't see any, so thank you, Jim. You're going to hang tight because we do have a couple more general budget questions for you, but I do see Chief Dunn has joined us. Chief Dunn, we jumped ahead a little bit since we lost you, so we took a little out of order, but you've got our full attention now, so hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Thank you for having us. First off, I want to thank the Finance Committee for your continued support, as well as support with the end of year transfer. And myself, as Deputy Chief, really want to extend our gratitude to Hugh Morton for his guidance, his wisdom, and his support. Not only with this budget process, which is our first, but also with the end of year transfer. So if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, we'd like to just do a brief PowerPoint presentation about what we've done in this year, and then we can get into the budget.
Please do. You're gonna do the presentation, right? You've got
Yes.
control. Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to try to do this as chronologically as possible. So first thing comes to staffing. Early in the fiscal year, Late in the fiscal year, Lieutenant Johnny Cuda retired, which means we went down to 25 officers out of a budget 31. So later on in the year, we did a simultaneous process of both full-time and lateral transfers, which was a big push for us. We had 2 great candidates that are currently in the police academy, both Westport residents. We anticipate they're graduating at the end of the month. They then have a 12-week field training period where they'll be on their own in May. Also, during this time, with the support of Chair Tees and Mr. Hartnett and the Westport Police Association, a successor contract was able to be negotiated where we can, officers can now live 15 miles outside of the border of Westport, which is kind of the industry standard. So that piqued the interest of several outside candidates. 3 were from Fall River PD, 1 with extensive experience, 1 with a few years experience, and 1 fairly new. So we're able to have those officers lateral into our department. 2 are currently working the road on their own, with the 3rd going to be on his own in the end of the month. So currently we're at 28 with the 2 recruits. We'll be at 30 come May, and it's our goal to go in front of the board and request the 31st position later this fiscal year. We currently reopened another lateral and full-time process. So that's kind of where we're at with staffing. I think we've made great strides from where we're at 25 to now 28 and 30 in a couple months. So community policing outreach unit, I think that's what you see. Nope, right here, community outreach unit. So this is something that's near and dear to Deputy Chief and I. We believe in fostering relationships between the officers and community members. Over the past year, our community outreach unit participated in 12 events. This past year, they're eager to expand this number. They're looking into some very interesting new programs to offer in town. We don't want to elaborate at this time, as we'd like to have them roll these out programs and have an opportunity to solidify their schedule for the year and not steal their thunder. Just know that there are some great things headed this way, and we're extremely excited about them. We also have the community comfort dog, Officer Kyle Fernandez, where he visited the schools, the veterans, and the senior center. Not the senior center, but the seniors. And on 2 separate occasions, both myself, Deputy Chief, and officers visited the VFW and had coffee with veterans. As you can see in green on the bottom, all participating officers donate 100% of their time at all events. This is extremely rare in policing. I hate that. I'm not surprised by the members of our department. Unfortunately, there are other agencies where community outreach units get compensated for that. So I'm extremely proud and privileged and honored to have our officers donate their time to give back to our community. The drone unit, I'll take a moment and defer to Deputy Chief Rubello, who has a lot more experience with this.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to thank you again for having us and just introduce the drone program. It's been ongoing now for a few years. With the end of year transfer from last year's funds, we were able to add an additional drone to our unit. It's a it's a Matrice 30T, which gives us thermal capabilities. Our old drone, we lost the thermal capabilities with that, but now we have that back, and it's a very robust drone. It was utilized with Dartmouth PD in finding an individual that was suicidal, that hurt himself on Route 6. We were able to locate that individual and get him the resources that he needed to get some help. If you look at the top of the screen here, that's what you would see through the drone if you're flying it on the controller. We hook it up to a TV as well, so that way people that are around us at the command center, command post can see what's going on and not hovering over the drone operator while he's trying to operate the drone. Currently, we have 2 members that are taking the Part 107 test for the FAA. They take an online course. Once they've completed that, then they go to Plymouth Airport, take the test on a computer system there. The pictures there are what you would see from the drone. So the color picture is the wide angle lens, and then the black and white is actually the thermal lens. That works both at night and at day. So if we wanted to fly this at night, we would just switch into the thermal mode, and we'd be able to, in essence, see at night. It improves the safety. We're able to gather information without putting people in dangerous situations. We primarily use it for search and rescue operations. It has been used in the past in tactical responses to get rid of the element of protecting our officers from getting involved in something that they don't need to be. It provides real-time data, allows us to see what's going on at a moment's notice. It's very fast to deploy, and it's cost effective because we can cover a large area without having to deploy multiple units into that area. I don't know if you've seen our Facebook post and the fire department's Facebook post. I've met with Deputy Chief Brisk, and we've talked extensively about what that can be used for in the fire realm as well. We just did some training, or I just did some training on Monday with them over at Saudi Pond. They were doing their cold water rescues, and we deployed the drones so that way they could see what was going on there. Like I said, you can find pictures of that in the Facebook post, both on the Westport Police page and the fire department's page. I did do a demonstration for them at night, and he had mentioned, Deputy Brisk, that is, mentioned that he could use it at fires to check for fire extension, or maybe some people that have wandered off into the woods. And that's the same thing we would use it for in a search and rescue event where we can find people. The summertime is more difficult with the canopy cover. The winter's a little easier, but regardless of what the temperature is outside, the thermal does work very well. As you can see in that picture, that was a summertime picture, and you can see very clearly items that give off a heat signature. If there's any questions, okay. You're on mute, Chief.
Thank you, Deputy. Appreciate it. One thing we noticed with domestic violence is we noticed a reduction in the incidents that we had this year. And one thing we contribute to is us working together with the women's shelter by offering support in to domestic violence victims. And we're also working closely with them. So that's something we're very proud of, the fact that we're able to reduce the amount of domestic violence incidents this year. Just going over our crime stats for the past 5 years. We'll take a minute just so our accidents have gone down, which is great to hear. Our arrests have gone down a little bit as well. Citations, Group A crimes, which we went over last year, Group B crimes. The amount of overall incidents we had, meaning taking reports, have gone up. The license to carry statistics have gone up significantly, and restrainings have gone down a little bit. Calls for service within the 5-year population. In 2023, we had 23,279. In 2024, we had 22,801. So it's not a significant decrease. And if we can just keep in mind that the amount of calls for service were roughly the same, but we had less officers. Miles patrolled, we actually went up this year by about 22,000 compared to last year. The crime rate, unfortunately, has gone up just a teeny bit. I believe from last year, we're kind of right around the same mark as Somerset, Swansea. Those are kind of comparable communities with us. Again, keep this in mind that this is subject to change due to varied reporting. We went over the COSAP grant last year. That's the opioid grant that we are part of, which allows, person overdoses. An officer goes, a report is taken, they go to the hospital. The officer then forwards the report to our detective, who then provides follow-up services with a clinician. This is standing out to mental health, and we've definitely embraced that as well. So this is the data that we were able to collect, and we're on the far right. One fatal is too many, in my opinion. Last year we had 5. This year we had 1. I am on the opioid task force, so we're looking forward to working together with the various organizations in town. As you can see, our behavioral health has gone up significantly. That's because we weren't documenting it in 2023, where we're now documenting in 2024. We administered Narcan 10 times with 8 saves. This is just a kind of more of a breakdown of the data. And just keep in mind too, with this grant, this is at no cost to the town. And what I mean by that is when our detective goes out to provide follow-up services, the overtime is compensated. If for some reason she's working and we need to call an officer in to fill the shift, that overtime is compensated as well. As for 3 to 5 years, I know last year I brought up this new computer aid design software, and it was rightfully so said that I should go in front of capital improvement. We're hoping to put that in the next 3 years of capital improvement. This is a significant increase. I understand though it's going to be an impact, potential impact on our software line item. It could be, I believe we're paying approximately $15,000 a year for our in-house in-house data program or report writing program, that could go up 3 times the amount. So we just wanted to kind of keep the Finance Committee aware of that. And if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. If we don't have the answer right now, I'll be sure to get the answer back to you as quickly as we can.
Chief, I think you might say a little more about the computer programs you just referred to a moment ago.
Sure.
What would that be used for and why it's a good idea, that kind of thing?
So right now, I mentioned last year, the system we have is equates to like Microsoft 97 for Word. That's kind of the analogy of it. What this does, this is for our dispatch. This is for our report writing for arrests. It pretty much, it's all encompassing. And what happens is this company is called IMC, was currently bought out by Central Square. And it appears that everybody's starting to transition into moving into Central Square. So pretty much this is what we need. This is kind of the heart and soul of our computer system. If we don't have it, it goes down. It's back to being on a typewriter and handwriting reports is what it boils down to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gary. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, so Chief, thanks for coming tonight and doing the presentation. Could you speak a little bit about, these surrounding communities are seeing an influx with homelessness and how that ties into maybe your ability to, these people that are now, I mean, obviously Westport's not immune to this.
Sure.
They're here also. Is that affecting the patrol or affecting the way the operation of the department is, going forward? Do you see that as an issue?
We always brought forecasting. It could be a potential issue. As right now, it's not an issue. However, we could be one day away where there's people, the whole hotel of Hampton Inn or their sister over up at White's is inundated. I've speaking to previous chiefs. They had issues in some other communities. I know the town of Norfolk had that issue. So it's something that we keep on our radar and try to have ideas in mind in case that does happen. But right now, we're fortunate enough that we do not have that issue.
Yeah, I mean, the only comment I have is like you see Fall River, for instance, now fining folks for being out and the public being intense. So that's going to spread to other communities. Dartmouth being one of them, Westport could see an influx. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think going forward, it's something that we have to monitor because these people will go somewhere and they'll go next door and there's maybe have to be some kind of either policy or how we address this in the future. I think it has to be, you're right, it has to be monitored.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Chief, are you going to go into your budget presentation next? Is that
Yes.
where you were going to look at the dollars? So
Yes.
this was a terrific presentation. If you wouldn't mind emailing it to us, so this way we can
Sure.
have it, so we can, some of the numbers are a little small to look at tonight, but we appreciate your showing it to us tonight.
Absolutely, I can do
Great,
that.
thank you.
So if I may, I'm going to defer to Deputy Chief Rebello regarding the personnel side. We split the budget up this year. Like I said, it was both a learning experience for both of us. So we wanted to kind of, one of us do one aspect of the budget, another do the other aspect of the budget and kind of, teach each other, educate each other on it.
So as I'm going through, if there's any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. Just starting off at the beginning, I know it was brought to our attention, if you're looking at the FY24 actual and the FY25 approved for line item 5101 and 5103, the department head and the assistant department head, the approved item that was from FY25 wasn't the actual number from FY25. So when you see the increase there going from FY24 to 26, it looks like a significant increase. However, there was only a 3% increase from going from FY24 to 25, then 25 to 26. As you can see it coming up here. Moving on to the non-clerical custodian, that was an increase. That was an increase due to us having to pay an officer to cut the grass and maintain the facilities here. Also, Officer Simcoe, who's now retired but does a lot of the facilities work here, goes above and beyond, and the amount of in that line item absolutely does not cover the amount of work that he does here. So that's where that line item comes from. As far as the rest of them, just skip down 51, 12, 14, 15, 16. Those are all negotiated through, what do you call it? Collective bargaining.
Yeah.
The overtime line item 5130, that just reflects the increase due to the salary increase due to collective bargaining, as well as the shift differential increase that was arbitrated as well. I'm sorry, not arbitrated, but discussed at that meeting as well. Dispatch overtime again.
Can I ask you one quick question before you go on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Your it's more your presentation. Is your presentation right now in Excel? And do you have any ability to maybe hide the first 4 years of columns? Because then it could get a little bigger for us so we can see it a little easier. I know you already provided it to us, so we do have that separately, but I don't know if you're able to hide those columns easily. I don't want to put you under pressure under doing something in Excel
The chief has that in his office. If I need to just
Oh,
step out
okay.
for a sec, I can go over there and do that.
No, don't worry about it. Just keep your presentation. So don't worry about it. So keep going. So that's fine.
Okay. So it's contractually negotiated. That was the overtime increase. The dispatchers overtime, their union negotiated an increase there as well. Reserve
Oh, I think
officers as well.
There we go. We lost the whole presentation. We get it back now.
Okay. So the increase you can see there, and all those were just contractually or negotiated rather. With the incentive, with the increase in the rank and file, we need to increase that to take into consideration the 31 officers. So that was increased as well. That takes into consideration both the holiday incentive as well as the overtime incentive. The holiday line item was increased as well to compensate for the 31 officers. Longevity is based on the staff that meet that requirement each year. That changes every year. Shift differential was another thing that was discussed during contract negotiations. An increase was added to that. That's where that increase comes from. The sick vacation buyback is a union thing based on what individuals we ask each individual prior years if they're planning on participating in that that portion of our budget, so we can calculate for that. Other than that, that's that.
All right. So I think we do have, thank you for that. So we have, Al, you have your hand up. So go ahead.
I do. The one area that I'm having trouble with is dispatchers.
Yep.
I'm having trouble with, the actual in 24 was, let me get my bifocals going correctly here, 137.5 plus or minus. And in 25, it jumped $70,000. And the FY26 jumped another 60,000 or 50,000, whatever the number is. And I'm not sure what FY26 TA rec means. So could you just, explain that to us?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
So the increase from 24 to 25 was due to contractual obligations. So their Teamsters union, the way it was, they were underfunded, and the town did a study that showed that they were underfunded. So they took that information, they went into contract negotiations, and they were able to negotiate the E911 dispatcher moved up to the E911 lead dispatcher rate. So that affected the 4 of the 5 people that were our dispatchers. And then the E911 lead dispatcher moved up to the local inspector rate. So all their rates increased to match where their new designation was. So that's why there's a significant increase there. So then just moving on to the FY26, just continues that contractual obligation, just increases that contractual obligation to what they had negotiated during that time frame.
Okay.
If you do the math out, it was about a 10% raise. And that was, some get less, some get more, but just for ease of mathematics, I just put in that it was a contractual 10% increase
Okay.
on average.
All right. So it was an underfund for a few years and we're just playing catch up ball. Is that essentially what I'm hearing you saying, or am I
Correct.
misrepresenting?
And then in there, moving from designations from dispatcher to lead dispatcher for 4 people to get them
Okay.
up to that rate. And then that one lead dispatcher going to a local inspector rate on their matrix is what incurred such a large increase.
Okay, fair enough.
Al, the TA rec is the town administrator's
I'm sorry.
recommendation
Yes.
on that budget.
Thank you,
Okay,
Cindy.
gotcha. Fair enough. I'm good. I just, I wasn't clear on that one, so thank you.
Sure.
So I'm going to take over the expense line item of it, and Mr. Hartnett mentioned contractual obligations for FY26 and level fund on expenses, and if not, provide a justification. That's the reason why. In the budget presentation we submitted, we gave a detailed reason as to why we need an increase in particular line items. The first one is 5242 building maintenance. Currently, it was at 8,500 for this fiscal year. I believe our building was built for 8,500,000, which is like a 0.001% for it. We've gone over the past couple of years. Again, we bring up Dave Simcoe being our handyman. He helps us out quite a bit and it helps decrease the cost. We've also explored grants. We were able to secure a grant when we had an issue with one of our HVAC systems, which we are able to cover under the dispatcher grant. The next one was 5308 tuition training, a budget for $10,000. We have currently 28 full-time police officers. We also have reserve police officers, retired reserve police officers that also need training. I believe I did my research. I contacted various communities. We are underfunded in this line item. The town of Fairhaven has a budget of 36,000. The town of Swansea is in the low 20s. Somerset is at approximately 18.5. Training costs have risen. A week-long training could be upwards of $900 or over $1,000. Again, we're being as frugal as possible. We were able to secure 2 grants through the FBI, through Maya, to send our new one lieutenant, and hopefully another lieutenant at the end of the month, to send them to a week-long training at no cost to the town. The next one was 5311 professional services. We do not have a janitorial service. We contract clean. So the initial bids that we received for this year was a significant increase, but we were able to negotiate more favorable terms. It's the utmost important in a right of our employees to work in a safe and environmentally friendly and clean workspace. The next one is 5341, which is telephone. This is increasing the line item due to more computers and SIM cards for our department. As you know, computers are a vital role in policing and it provides increased access to information. The next one is 5320, accreditation. This is something myself and Deputy Chief spoke highly about. We just paid the bill to enter in the process for accreditation and certification. Currently, Post and Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission are working hand in hand, where police departments will have to at least be certified. So that's our initial goal, is to at least be certified, and then from there move onto accreditation. There is no increased cost between being certified or accredited. We do get an enhanced module of our onboarding system called Power DMS that's within our yearly fee to be a part of MPAC. The next one's 5319, which is ammo and guns. And it also includes electronic weapons such as tasers. The Massachusetts Police, MPTC, Massachusetts Police Training Council, has come down now with higher standards regarding taser deployments for training, where we were only doing 2 deployments per year per officer. They're now mandating us to do 4, which means that's an increase in taser cartridges as well as ammunition. And as you know, in last year's end of year transfer, I requested a small transfer for ammo for our 2 recruits, which just shows how tight this budget can be. The next one is 5550, which is computer software. We are our officers are contractually mandated to wear body worn with cruiser war cameras. This is increased. We have increased iCloud data storage, where initially we had a server that got full very quickly. From there, we had to transition to an iCloud service. The last one is 5730, which is membership and dues, which is $1,000. That's an increase in what's called the Southeastern Mass Law Enforcement Council, or SEMLEC. It's a collaborative of communities within Plymouth and Bristol County. So a scenario would be, like Deputy Chief talked about the drone. If we have a lost hunter in the woods, we activate the SEMLEC search and rescue, which they in turn bring 30 or 40 officers from throughout these communities at no cost to the town. So it's, you know, it's a benefit to us to be a part of this collaborative for an extra $1,000. So the total increase we're requesting on the expense side is $78,520. So I'll open up to any question if anyone has any questions.
Chief, you might explain a little bit the value of the accreditation process.
Sure. So by having us accredited, or at least certified and then accredited, it reduces lawsuits in insurance costs and increased grant opportunities, both state and federally. It ensures accountability and transparency and professionalism within the community. It's, you know, this is a path moving forward that we want to achieve. You know, as stated, up to date, we want to be up to date with our current policies, procedures, rules and regulations, and accepted practices, and reduces exposure to the staff, the department, and the town as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone have any other questions for the chief? Jack, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. Chief Dunn, how are you tonight? Oh, you're on mute there.
I keep doing that. Good. Yourself?
I'm good, thanks. So this makes your first year, correct?
This is our first year. Yes, this is our
Your
first
first-
budget.
How did it go?
It's going well. It's a big learning experience and a big learning curve between myself and Deputy Chief, but you know, it's a collaborative effort, and you know, we're hoping to maximize our budget with, you know, efficiency and transparency with not only the FinCom but the select board in the town.
Great. And how do you feel with where the budget's at, and I guess kind of where it's heading? And I know it's only your first year in, so just kind of, you know, testing the water, see what your general consensus is after your presentation.
The general consensus, it's a lot. Again, we're excited. We're excited where we're moving our department, both professionally, you know, both expense and personnel side, as well as giving back to the community with our community outreach unit. You know, myself and Deputy definitely embrace this. You know, we're looking forward to not only this budget, but you know, also the next budget, and learning what went well, what we could do differently, what can we do better in the next budget cycle.
Awesome. And then just a particular question.
Sure.
For the central square there, definitely appreciate you kind of forecasting an increase in costs coming up. It looked like it said 3 years. Can you just clarify, is that in 3 years you expect, you foresee this cost coming up? Is it a 3-year cost? And is that an annual increase that you see by taking on this new software?
So I think 3 years is very aggressive for us, considering we want to go through accreditation certification. We just kind of wanted to put it on the Finance Committee's radar. Dartmouth is one of the first communities, along with New Bedford and Chelsea, that are going to be moving to Central Square. There's a lot of hurdles that they're doing right now with what's called CGIS, and making sure that everything operates smoothly between the communication between the department and the state. So they're kind of the guinea pigs in signing up for it. And it's a year turnaround from the time they enter into Central Square to pay it to they're live and by themselves. So this is more or less saying, hey, this is something we're exploring. This is something we're looking at. I think 3 years is aggressive. It would be a one-time payment to under the capital improvement. It would probably be a couple $100,000. But then from there, the cost of our software line item was significantly increased. And that's where I contacted the Dartmouth police chief and I said, you know, obviously they're bigger than us, so they're right now what we use is called IMC. You know, I asked them what they pay yearly for their IMC subscription and what they anticipate for Central Square, and he anticipates 3 times the amount just for the yearly subscription fee for transitioning from IMC to Central Square.
Okay, so am I correct in saying it's kind of like 3 years from an aggressive standpoint that you could see as kind of looking into that, but also we'll be able to see how Dartmouth, you know, kind of handles this program because they're in it right now.
Correct. Well, they're in it. They're in it to enter it, and then it's
so they still need that year.
Correct.
Kind
At
of
least that year. Yep. I think everybody's kind of waiting on. I think Chelsea's the initial police department, so everybody's waiting to see how it goes with Chelsea, and then from there, other agencies will sign on. Dartmouth being one of them.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher has his hand raised. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Dunn and Deputy Chief Rebello for everything you've discussed on the previous presentation as well as the budget presentation. I appreciate your efforts this year and moving forward. I did have just a quick follow-up question on the issue with the body cam footage storage. So I was curious. You mentioned that at first it was on a server. What was that? Did that have anything to do with the town IT, or was that something separate? And I'm just curious if there are any other options other than the current service that you're using for the cloud storage going forward that you all have had a chance to investigate.
Deputy, do you mind taking this one, please?
No, yeah, absolutely. So I initially wrote the grant for the body cameras. We got all the equipment for nothing. Part of that grant, and speaking with at the time, WatchGuard was the company. They stated that we would have enough if we utilize a server in-house. Speaking with Keith Novo, he set up the server to do that with what they thought would be enough storage space. We were on board for, I think, 2.5 months, and that server completely filled up. Speaking with Keith Novo, it's just not financially feasible to have it on site, and it would be far too expensive to keep increasing server storage here on site. It didn't have redundancy in the system either. So if something were to happen to that server, we would lose all body camera video. With the additional body cameras and the cruiser cameras, each cruiser has 3 cameras in it. So it's capturing 3 recordings per cruiser that show up on a scene. If we have a crash where 3 to 4 cruisers show up, that's 3 times the amount of videos that are there. In addition, the body cameras as well. These are all high resolution videos, which take a significant amount of space. So going through cloud storage, which now we have unlimited storage, so we're not necessarily having to worry about how often our officers are shutting cameras off. And now we have more transparency because our officers are not shutting those cameras off, and we're able to record the entire scene for as long as we need to. And we have unlimited storage at that point.
Deputy Chief, I'm under the impression the body cams at all are not optional. Is that right?
It's in the contract that they have to wear them at this point in time. So yeah, no, they're currently not an option though.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and thank you, Chief Dunn.
Sure.
Again, thanks for all your efforts, and that is the only question I had. Thank you very much.
No problem, sir.
Great, thank you. Cindy, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chief and Deputy Chief. I had a question about SROs. Of your full complement of staff, when you have your school resource officers deployed at the school, is that included in your count of 31?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so how many officers are budgeted for the current year and the upcoming year?
We have 2 officers currently that are budgeted and assigned to the schools. We have one that's assigned primarily to the high school, and we have one that's assigned to both the Macomber and West.
Okay, and that will be the same for this next budget is two officers?
Yes,
Okay, and that comes solely out of your budget?
it does.
Okay, and that's by your request?
Yes, one is by my request, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And just so the board is aware, when you hear a school resource officer, as FinCom is aware, when you hear school resource officers, well, school's out of session, what do? So we augment, we used to have, we used to pay officers during the week, or reserve police officers, full-time police officers during the week, patrol the beaches, where they're writing parking citations at town beaches, they're investigating any kind of crashes, any type of complaints, they're handling calls for service, which alleviates the burden to the car in that area, the cruiser in that area. So these officers, the 2 officers, school resource officers, are assigned to the beaches during the summer, which means we are not filling overtime, or if we are, it's like 1 shift or 2 shifts throughout the summer, where we make sure at least 1 school resource officer is on throughout the summer, and the other one, you know, obviously can take their vacation and stuff like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wasn't sure if you had any other questions, Cindy. All right, thank you. And does anyone else have any other questions? I don't see any other hands up at the moment. And Cindy, I just looked, there's nothing in chat, right? So. Well, Chief, Deputy, congratulations on your first year under your belt.
Thank you.
I think when you came to do the presentation last year, you weren't quite sworn in, or just sworn in. Is that right? Right?
I made sure I was in the last FinCom presentation last year.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, and I was sworn in, I believe, on the 8th or the 9th of January.
Right. Okay.
I'm still new, but I was very new back then.
Right. Well, you've got 1 full year, so congratulations, and terrific presentation tonight from both of you. So we appreciate all the detail that you provided. And I don't think we have any other questions, so I thank you both.
Thank you.
Much. Have a nice night.
All right. Thank you so
guys.
much. All right. Have a good night.
Too. Thank you.
All right. I think Jim Hartnett's still with us.
Yes, I am. And I'm sorry, my camera's not working. When I turn it on, it freezes. So I don't know if it's
That's
trying to tell
okay.
me something or what, but
It's one of those days. Well, so the next item on our agenda was really to kind of get just a general budget update from you, and a few questions came up last week at the meeting about asking for a little more information on free cash in the calculation. And I know you had provided FinCom a presentation back in November, and I forwarded that presentation to everyone again. But we may have a couple of questions on free cash. I think the questions were more in the lines of, well, I can't answer I can't speak for what the questions are, but did you have a little presentation that you're going to do, or you were just going to open up? Okay.
I do. My screen isn't as
I'll let you do that, and then
show as well as I like it. I'd
members
just
have
like to just point out, you sit back and you watch a couple of these presentations. We are very fortunate here in Westport with the departments and department heads that we have, and we have people that really put the time in and work very hard for not a lot of money, not a lot of recognition. I think you had the veterans here. Carol was here. She's outstanding. Just even the additional work she's doing on the website. We're looking to update our website. She's been putting all that effort into it. You don't realize how much time and effort goes into migrating data from one site to another and setting it up. Theo's been outstanding in the assessor's office. Just the new growth that we've been getting the last few years, a lot of that is attributed to her and her finding additional things out there that normally have been overlooked in the past. And obviously Chief Don and Deputy Bella have been great to work with. And, I'm not going to go through all the departments, but they were here tonight. And I think it helps me out quite a bit. But let me share my screen. We'll start with the free cash. This is just a chart going back to 2004 for Westport's free cash. You can see some years, most of the years going back in the early years were around anywhere from 200 up to maybe $900,000. We had a negative year in 2010. And then we climbed up a bit and, kind of fluctuated here and there. But For most part, we've been in the range of $1 to $1.5 million the last couple of years. We went from $2 million in 2020. These say 23, but it was actually the 22 year. They were certified in 23. The next year, 24 was 2.3, and this year we're just about 3.5 million. And I just want to kind of compare that to some of the other communities in our area. It sounds like a lot, but we're just getting to the point where other communities have been for a long time. You know, this is going to be very difficult to read on your screen, but I have Dartmouth, which is a larger community, so it's not a great comparison, but it's close by, so we wanted to add that. Seekonk, Somerset, and Swansea. On this chart, the dark red line on the right-hand side is Westport. So for every year, with the exception of 2013, when we beat Swansea by a little bit, we've had less free cash than every one of those communities going in. The way I look at it, we should be in the range of somewhere between maybe 2.3 and $3.3 million a year for free cash. That is what we should be planning for. We've been well below that over the years, and the free cash that we're showing now at 3.5 was for 2024, right? So we bumped up our estimates in 2025 already to compensate for some of that, and we'll probably bump them up a little bit more again in 26. So some of that money has already been accounted for and going forward. I do want to show you where some of that free cash comes from, and I know we all love the term free cash. It's certainly not free. But of the $3.5 million, we had about 172 that we carried over from last year, right? So we didn't allocate all our free cash from last year. With the 5-year financial plan, we are recommending that we forward 10% of that each year to the following year, just so that we have a balance going into the next year. The department turnbacks, we had $1.1 million. And this is interesting, right? So we've had some good years of department turnbacks. Not so much as past year, but the year before. A good part of it was the police department. They were down 5 officers. That's $400-some thousand right there. We've had health insurance holidays, meaning that our insurance plan, our group insurance plan, has had excess funds either through investments or fees and claims that were less than anticipated. So we had months when the town did not have to pay the health insurance. So 2 years ago, we had two months, which was roughly $600,000. I think last year we had 1 month, but I'm not sure on that. But we have had some holidays in there. So we've also, with these department turnbacks, we've had COVID money over the last 4 years. And while we haven't used COVID money specifically to plug budgets when we've needed like money for matching grants, or we needed money to offset a vehicle or to purchase a vehicle for the police, fire, or some other department, even mid-year, we've been able to use that money. So we haven't had to transfer money from a department budget to the expense account to purchase something. So we've had a little bit more back in the turnbacks than we traditionally have. And then the local receipts estimate versus actual. There were a few years back in 1920 when we were budgeting close to 96% of actual receipts. Our estimates were about 96% of what the actual was for that year, which is extremely aggressive. It doesn't take much. One line item goes south and we're going to be in the negatives. And we brought that back down to 76% for FY24, which, some people say is conservative. It's more conservative. I think we want to stay somewhere in between 70 and maybe 85%. So we bumped that up a bit to 80% for 2025. And we'll probably go up a little bit higher for 26. State aid, the numbers always get adjusted, state aid and state assessment. From the budget numbers that we get when town meeting happens in April to the actual approved budget in July. Sometimes that goes up. There's been times when that's gone down. So we picked up about $160,000 there. And then the last number is just miscellaneous stuff. And part of it's new growth. I think we had probably close to $300,000 in new growth over what was budgeted. We normally budget 400,000, and we've been fortunate the last few years to get anywhere between $600,000 and $800,000 in new growth. The larger number, the 800, was because we changed the way we calculated the assessments, which allowed us to pick up an additional 6 months for 1 year. We went from a calendar year to a fiscal year, or vice versa. But anyway, we were able to do it for an 18-month cycle as opposed to a 12. So we got a little bit more that year, but we're back to the traditional cycle. The free cash also gets impacted by different things, and it's tough to determine. That's why nobody really wants to give you a free cash number too early until it's certified, because they can reduce the free cash amount if we haven't sought reimbursements for grants, like Chapter 90, which is the money we get for street improvements, where we do street work in the summer, and then we seek reimbursement. If we have not requested that reimbursement by a specific date, whatever it was, $300,000-$400,000, that'll be charged to the free cash and could reduce the amount of free cash. So Nicole's been pretty aggressive this year, getting departments to make sure that they have their reimbursement request in, so that it wouldn't go against the free cash. So that also kind of boosted up a little bit this year, but it'll reduce it next year. So it's give and take. On the turnbacks, I think we sent this. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Before you go, there's 3 folks that have hand raised, so maybe we
Sure.
want to cycle with them first. So 1 second. So thank you. Hugh, go ahead.
You're on mute, Hugh.
Thank you. I'm under the impression that a significant amount of money was Chapter 90, which is money we need, et cetera. But it seems to me that potentially distorts the calculation, because that's committed for a certain purpose, rather than free cash when we think of as being available for whatever. Could you comment on that?
Yes. So when I mentioned the Chapter 90, that actually hit last year. So we had not got the reimbursement in. So I think we had $2.3 million in free cash. If the Chapter 90 wasn't there, we would have had, I don't know, say 2.5 million instead of the 2.3. So we just have to hold that aside until we get the reimbursement.
Go ahead, Cindy.
So kind of in a nutshell, and I know you were going to go through that, I guess, in the next slide. In department turnbacks, there are two critical items that you mentioned that would have you taken quite a chunk of that that I guess are built into this number. One being the understaffing of the police force. You said, back of the envelope, 400,000. And then if you had just 1 month of the insurance holiday, you said that's about 300,000 a month.
Yeah, we're about 280, 285.
Yeah, okay. So we'll
But
just
those,
call it
I have to
300.
say,
So between the two of those, that's 700. So
yeah, but I
this is
just gotta,
artificially inflated by about 700,000 in a normal year.
no, I didn't misspeak. That 700 was the previous year. This year, the
Okay.
police department, we did a transfer at the end of the year, and we used up most of the police department surplus this
Oh,
this
okay.
cycle. But I can go through those numbers. Like a good portion of it is snow removal, right? We haven't had snow removal the
Right,
last 2
okay.
years. That can go
Okay, when
anywhere
you-
from 100
when
to
you go through-
500,000.
Yeah, that's fine. When you go through the slide, that's fine. I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Christopher. You have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Harden, the item that I'm drawn to is actually the estimated receipts, local receipts. And it seems to me that, I certainly agree that 98% is extremely aggressive. I am curious if the sweet spot is above what you have suggested, around 85%. I am curious if you are aware of what percentage surrounding towns and also other comparable towns use in their estimates over the last few years.
So from what I hear from other communities, 75% is the goal. I think realistically, I think they're probably 80 to 85%, some up as high as 90. I haven't seen any, and I haven't looked in great detail. This is just general discussion. I haven't seen any over 90. I think at Swansea at one point was very low. I think they were probably like 50 or 60%. But you know, they also had quite a bit of free cash too. So yeah, it's I would like to stay under 85%, but you know, in a given year, if you had to go up a little bit more, I can show you the my last slide shows some of the local receipts and the percentages, and it might give you a better idea where we stand.
Interestingly enough, I am kind of curious of the breakdown on which particular receipts you might be able to be a tad more aggressive on, and which should be more conservative on. So I would be interested in that breakdown. Thank you.
Okay, and just the biggest local receipt we have is the excise tax, which is about 42% of the total local receipts. And that has actually gone down the last 3 years. So it's, yeah, it doesn't take much to really change that local receipt calculation.
So Jim, before you go, I want to just comment too. I'm in support of your range of that 75% of estimated revenues. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's a municipality or whether it's a corporation. When you budget revenues, and if you budget expenditures that you're going to spend every penny of that revenue, if something goes south on revenue, and you probably won't know that until you're 8-9 months into your fiscal year. And if your revenues aren't going to be at that trend that you hope for, you've already been spending at that revenue. And so your last 2 or 3 months would be a real drastic cuts if something happened, right? So part of that budgeting of that 75 to 85% of revenue gives you that cushion so that you really should never get in that situation where you'd be in a turmoil situation where you would have to cut dramatically in your last few months of the fiscal year. So I'm really in support of maintaining that 75 to 80%. I think when you get up to 85 and 90, that really gets scary, because if the town is facing revenue shortage than they budgeted, it doesn't have the ability to say, okay, we'll increase it somewhere else and make it up, right? There is no making it up in the revenue in municipal finance. And so I really am in support of that 75 to 85%, where 85% starts to get me a little concerned. So I just want to support your theory on that, Jim.
Thank you. And this is again going to be difficult to see, but this is just the turnbacks, and I did send that to the committee. So if you wanted to look at it on your own, you'll see where the turnbacks came in from. You know, we had $77,000 from the reserve fund. We put $100,000 in that a year. We only used $23,000 this past year. You know, we had some software for the accountant in the collector's office, which totaled $55,000 that they didn't purchase yet. They're still reviewing and have not pulled the trigger on that yet. So that got turned back in. You know, property insurance was one where we had $51,000, but that's a large line item. So 51,000 is only a small percentage. We were also concerned about the old high school, whether or not that was going to be insured as a vacant parcel, which would have bumped that up significantly. Public safety, this is the first year, like I said, the police department, the last few years, they've been up $400,000-$500,000 on their turnbacks. They went down to 100. They did some purchases at the end of the year, much needed purchases at the end of the year, but we still had $100,000 from the police department on their turnbacks. The highway department at the bottom there, we had $124,000 turn back. We had another close to $50,000 in snow and ice. We had cemetery, $19,000. A good portion of that was salaries. Like I said, we kind of had one vacant position on and off most of the year. Transfer station, 27,000. A portion of that was salaries, but not all of it. As you get down to human services, the veterans, they had a turn back of about 113,000. They're pretty much based on caseload, and we're required to pay that. So she actually reduced her budget a little bit this year to compensate for that. And then we had health and life insurance. We had $290,000 turn back. That's a $3 million budget. So you're looking at about 7.6% of that being turned back. You get a half dozen employees that automatically, sign up that weren't signed up the previous year, and that can add up pretty quickly. We're also looking at health and life insurance. I had in the preliminary budget for this year, and it's still early, so I'm a little reluctant to get too excited about it, but they're looking at a 10.5% increase. We had a meeting this past week with the group, and they voted to allow another community to join. So that increase may actually bump up to 12%. We'll try to reduce that with some of the investments they had, but I was hoping for some excess money in there that, maybe we could distribute as we got through the budget process, but it doesn't look like we're going to have that. And this is the local receipts. And I know Mr. Thrasher was asking about the local receipts. This is a good sheet to look at. It kind of goes back to 2019, and I have it going back further if you want. But it gives you an idea of what percentage right now I'm budgeting for FY26 over FY24 numbers. All right, so the big one is the top line there, which is the motor vehicle excise tax. FY24, we took in $3,044,000, and I'm budgeting at 92.4%, which would be $2.8 million. This is the line item that's gone down the last 2 years. It was 3.2 in FY22. It was about $18,000 less than 23, and it was about, $150,000 less in 24. So previous to that line item was going up a couple $100,000 a year. The room tax has been going up steadily the last few years. We got the new hotel probably 5-6 years ago, which helped. And then I think the short-term rentals are also adding to that. Room tax, meals tax is pretty holding steady. We're budgeting at those 85% of, and these are 85% of fiscal 24 actual numbers. So if you went to fiscal 26, they'd probably be just slightly less than that. Most of the other numbers are pretty stationary. Licenses and permits actually went down in FY24. They went down $25,000. So we're budgeting that at slightly less and anticipating that may go down a bit. Investment income, this has been the shining star this past year. That went up from 300,000 up to 567,000. But if you go back a couple of years, it was $36,000. So that's kind of offset the excise tax and a couple of the other ones. The ambulance has been pretty much holding steady in that range, anywhere from 450 up to maybe $525,000. It's actually gone up a little bit, but we put another 20,000 into the revolving account last year that they used to purchase not only future ambulances, but equipment for the ambulance. So right now, if we add up all the local receipts, we're about almost $6 million. We had 7 million, just over 7 million in FY24. So we're at about 85%. In reality, if local receipts continue to go up a couple $100,000 a year, we'll be at 79% when the actual numbers come in. This gives us a little bit of a cushion. We don't know where the state numbers are going to be coming in. If the state numbers come in lower than we anticipate, we may have to bump this up a little bit just to keep us afloat. If you get up to 90%, you don't have room to bump this up if something else happens. So it's still early in the process. We're waiting for the state numbers. We're waiting for the Chapter 70 numbers on the revenue side. That's the big number. And then on the assessment side from the state, we're looking to see what the charter school and school choice numbers will be. Looking at, the only other big numbers that we're looking at is property insurance. We have an idea on that. I think we're in the preliminary budgets, we've accounted for a pretty sizable increase. So we're hoping we can reduce that a little bit as we go forward. And that's pretty much where we are. I think, we have everything looks bleak. We've made progress over the last few years. Budget wise, the assessors overlay account went from negative up to fairly healthy positive there. We may actually be able to pull some money out of that account to supplement some of the capital improvement projects. We've reduced our local receipts, dependence on local receipts from 95 down to 80%, 75, 80%, which is big. But we've been tough. We've been tough on the departments. The town departments and the school department have all had to make sacrifices to get us here.
Thanks, Jim. And I just want to reiterate too, I think I've heard there's been some level of sentiment when the free cash number came in at over $3 million that it almost sounded like it was a bad thing. And it's not. It's a really good thing. Part of the town expects to generate free cash, just as you said, Jim, that your goal is to generate 2.3 to 3 million per year in free cash. The town needs to generate that free cash, so it needs to have a budget surplus, either through a combination of turnbacks or revenue higher than budgeted. And if it doesn't, if those two things don't happen, then the budget is supported and we're not in a crisis situation. But the goal would be to generate free cash, because that free cash is needed to fund capital purchases, to fund a stabilization account, to kind of build some reserves that the town just has not had in years. And the town's really underinvested, does not have reserves, and it's the town hasn't been able to generate enough free cash to do those sort of things. And this is the first couple of years that there's actually enough free cash that's generating, that's actually supporting the fiscal responsibility of building a solid financial basis here. So it's not a bad thing that 3 million in free cash get generated, in my opinion. But thank you, Jim. Cindy, go ahead.
I know, Jim, that you have discussions with other town administrators, and when you go through this process of going through, local receipts and free cash and whatnot, in your knowledge, does any other community use free cash regularly to fund their operating budget?
It's a good question. I don't know for sure. Most of them are using it for capital expenses. It's made very clear to us through the state that you don't want to use it for your operating budget. I think I haven't heard of too many communities using it on a regular basis for their operating budget. It's been more for plugging holes when needed.
And for saving for future, right, for saving for future investments.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just give you a little insight. Dartmouth does not use free cash to supplement recurring expense in its budget. Does not do it for salaries. Utilizes the free cash that we do generate for capital expense and capital items. And of recent, we've done a stabilization account for long-term capital, buildings that need to be replaced later on down the road. So it's kind of like the same model, I think, that we're trying to do here. We've done that for quite some time. Now, like the opera money, for instance, that was handed out to communities, was not supposed to be used for one-time expense, not for building in budgets, putting in personnel, because that eventually goes away. And free cash is a moving target. So it could be 5 million this year. Next year it could be 2 million. We've had years where we've had negative free cash over the past. So, you know, we build the budgets, like Karen mentioned, and Jim's put together, the budgets need to be within a conservative amount, you know, 3%, and plus or minus, that's where the free cash is generated. But to put it back in the operations is really not, you know, prudent. And, you know, just a comment, Jim mentioned the departments here and, you know, their efforts of turning back free cash. I'd just like to commend Jim for this presentation and the work that he puts into it. He's basically the finance director, if you will, for the town, not only the town administrator. So this is really, since he's come on board, I think that from what we've had in the past to what we have now, it's night and day. And I would just like to commend him as he's commended the department heads for what they've done.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work.
Absolutely great. Thank you for saying that, Gary. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any other questions on the free cash? Does that answer questions that had come up last week? I think hopefully that filled those gaps.
Yeah, and I'm also available too. So if anybody has more detailed questions, they want to sit down, we can sit down and we can go through them line item by line item if need be.
So Jim, in terms of the budget timing, the state is going to, what's the state's plan for the next round of state aid to come out?
So the governor is supposed to have their budget out in January. Normally it's around January 22nd, 23rd. So I'm hoping that week we'll have the state numbers and those numbers can change quite a bit, but normally the Chapter 70, the charter school and the school choice, which are our big numbers, are pretty consistent throughout that whole budget process.
Right. Because by the time that the select board has to approve its budget to the finance committee, there will not be another round from the state, right? So there wouldn't be the next round after January 20th before February 20th, right? There wouldn't be something that quick.
Yeah, I think the House budget comes in just after that.
Right. So probably once the January governor's numbers come in, that's kind of our basis of where, you know, as best, of course, things are going to continue to change and we'll have the ability up until town meeting to change something if needed, but that's kind of the numbers we'll head into with, right?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close there. I'll have the insurance numbers. I'll have, you know, when just about that time we start getting the regional school numbers too. So Diamond is the other big number.
Right.
If you remember last year, the governor's budget was late. I think she put it out in March. But MMA is in a couple of weeks, and usually she'll announce any major increases or decreases to the budget, the conference in Boston. And also, as you mentioned, House Ways and Means, and then I think the Senate, the House Ways and Means is the last budget. Senate will be after the governor's budget. But usually the governor's budget is always inflated. And then House Ways and Means is really what the final budget that the towns will use. But that happens. Sometimes it doesn't even happen in this fiscal year if it's late. So we go with the best estimates.
Yeah, so we found some of the numbers we got to be careful of with the governor's budget, but there's some that are formula based, like Chapter 70 and charter and school choice that we can usually that have been fairly consistent throughout the process.
Right. Does anyone have anything else for Jim? Then we can let him enjoy the rest of his short night.
Guys are working hard. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate your coming as always.
Yeah, anytime. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Okay. I think we can move quite along here. We have on the agenda any committee or liaison updates, but I don't know if there's any committee meetings that happened in the last week that since our
I think
last
we
update.
lost Al. Oh no, there he is. Okay. I couldn't see him and I thought we lost Al somewhere along the way. There he is.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here I am.
Any liaison or update no. Okay. We just met last week, so not a lot happens in a week, right? So, okay. The next action item is to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2025. If everyone's had a chance to review, if we can take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion on those? All right, I'll do a roll call. Al,
Al Lees, aye.
Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Zach,
I'm gonna abstain from this one.
sure thing.
All right.
Christopher,
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Gary,
Abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
thank you. And Karen Rose, aye. Thank you. All right, so I have no correspondence to discuss. So just our upcoming meetings, just to let everyone know. So next week, so we made great progress through today. We were very expedient and got through a lot of budgets today. So that was fantastic. So our next meeting is January 21st, which is next Tuesday. And we have scheduled the treasurer, collector, and debt service with Sue Brayton, the recreation department, the town accountant, and highway and snow and ice. That is for the 21st. The 28th, we tentatively have scheduled the building department, but we will see if he's available. If not, we'll ask Jim at some other point. I don't see the need to ask Jim to come in specifically just to do one budget, but we'll work that out. And then on February 11th, we have the Westport Community School presentation. And that's our upcoming budgets. I am in the process of I'm going to send an email to the select board and school committee with just a few dates to try to get our joint meeting. We're really in a tight situation because I think Jim is not available until February 4th at the earliest. And then the select board is scheduled to approve their version of the budget, I think, February 20th. So we need to get a meeting in the middle of those. So I'm gonna try to circulate some dates and just see what we can get. So
Karen, as far as the,
Karen.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
As far as the, I know in the past we've invited Diamond, but with no representation. Have we invited?
Yeah, I've been working on that with them, Gary. We're still trying to figure out the date because they don't have their budget number.
Yeah.
So we were going to have them come in the same date as the school, but it would kind of get lost in the shuffle. So we've got them on standby, but we definitely want to have them come in. We do have a
Yeah, no,
representative
Yeah.
from Diamond that's from Westport that represents Westport to the Diamond board. So that's who's going to come in.
Yeah, in the past we've invited them, but sometimes they don't show up. But I think
Yeah.
having a multi-million-dollar project and having the town, supplement some of that, I think that it's important that we get an update.
Yeah.
They'll definitely
Yes.
come in this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and we're trying to keep
Mike-
them outside of this tight schedule because
Yeah.
whatever the number is what we have to.
Yeah, the number, it is what it is.
Right,
But
right, so.
it'd be more like an
but we'll
updated project.
definitely,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
probably in
Karen,
March, kind of.
Okay. Good.
my question was, do you know what date the warrant closes?
I do not know.
Is that the end of January usually?
I do not know.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious.
Jim had
calendar
put
online?
together, we can find it. Jim put together, he does a great job right at the beginning of budget season and puts a lot of dates, right on there. So
Right.
it might be in
Nicole,
there.
Nicole has her hand up. She may know.
Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
Warrant articles are due to Denise by the 24th of January.
Oh, good.
Oh.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
she'll start compiling from there.
All right. Thank
So
you.
probably the
That's-
next week after that or so.
Great.
Obviously, it doesn't include the budget.
No,
No,
Yeah.
but
just
at
the
least
warrant
we would,
article.
at least we would have some idea if there's very many money articles in there. So that's good. That's good to know.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Nicole. Any other topics that for the next week? January 21st. Anyone else have any other topics they'd like to add to the agenda at this point? No?
Nope.
Okay. If you get anything, we've got to do this agenda pretty quick because next Monday's a holiday, so we've got a quicker posting this round. So I'll probably get the agenda done tomorrow.
Karen, just a little point of information. You know, in Dartmouth, we're obviously the governor's signed this remote access until March, I think it is. I reached out. I reached out to the governor's office last week just to ask, you know, do they intend on extending it? Do they intend on making it permanent? And I think there might be a sense of they're thinking about making it permanent, but they haven't decided anything yet. Obviously, the legislature has to meet real quick because March will be here before you know it. So I think that's maybe something to keep on our radar going forward. You know, we can follow that. I'm sure it'll make some kind of news that it's extended.
Right. Yep. Nope. It's definitely on our radar, March 31st.
Okay, great.
It's extended to.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Gary.
Yep.
Okay, so I have no topics that came up within 48 hours of today. So if we're all set, motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So,
adjourn.
second,
All right, I will roll call. Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Hugh,
Ernest Morton, enthusiastic eye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Christopher,
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Gary.
Yes.
Thank you. Karen Rouse,
Have-
aye. Good night,
have a
everyone.
good
Thank
dinner.
you,
I'm gonna go
everyone.